There had always been one moon over Typhon 9. Now there were two. Captain Lira Myles stood at the Aegis's forward observation bay, watching the twin moons drift in orbit around the massive gas giant. Their pale shadows crossed each other in a slow, impossible dance. "Still adjusting to it?" Relek asked as he stepped beside her. "I'm trying to decide if it's a miracle or a mistake," Lira said. "The stars remember one thing. We remember another." Behind them, the bridge murmured with quiet activity. The crew had returned to duty, but the air aboard the Aegis was heavier, like the ship itself remembered the silence of the Coreless Place. Imani Rhodes entered, carrying a secure data slate. "It's not just the moons. The Accord Registry has entire planetary histories that didn't exist a week ago. Minor changes, but they all ripple out. We seeded one memory, and reality's rebuilding itself around it." "Any signs of the bloom?" Lira asked. Imani shook her head. "Not directly, but the quantum noise levels across fringe systems are spiking. Something's still echoing, and the seed key is no longer inert." She placed the object on the console. It shimmered faintly, pulses syncing with an unseen rhythm. Relek leaned in. "That's a heartbeat." Lira exhaled slowly. Then something still alive in the dark. Varela Station had changed. It was subtle at first, an added corridor that none of the old maps showed. A section labeled Solace Deck that, according to official records, had been decommissioned 2 decades earlier. And yet, there it was, operational, occupied. Imani walked through the corridor in silence, her boots echoing across polished floor panels that bore no signs of age. She passed technicians who wore standard Accord uniforms, but their insignias were wrong, not outdated, different. "I'm telling you, this place isn't just altered," she said, pressing her comms. "It's rewritten, layered with versions of itself that shouldn't coexist." Lira's voice replied through her earpiece. "Confirmed. We're seeing the same on Deck 8. New personnel, new layout, no records of transfer or construction." Relek's voice joined in. "And yet the systems respond to us like we've always been assigned here." Imani stopped at a bulkhead. Her eyes narrowed. Carved faintly into the side panel was a symbol, a spiral pierced by a vertical shard. Weathered, as if it had always been there. She reached out to touch it. The bulkhead shimmered. For a fraction of a second, the corridor behind her vanished. In its place, a barren stone room lit by a pulsing red crystal, and a figure, tall, faceless, woven of threads. The same kind of being they had met at the bridge beyond the bloom. Then the corridor snapped back into existence. Imani stepped back, heart racing. We're not the only ones who came back. Back aboard the Aegis, Lira reviewed the incoming data. She didn't speak at first. Then, "We need to leave orbit." Varela's unstable. Something seeded a layered reality here. Relek folded his arms. "Where do we go?" Lira turned toward the seed key. Its pulses had changed, no longer steady but pointing. "Where it leads," she said, "before the threads unravel further." The system the seed key led them to was a graveyard. Once called Serathis, it had been home to 3 colony worlds and a trade nexus. Now it was silence incarnate, its sun flickering like a dying eye, planets stripped bare, debris fields orbiting in eerie stasis. The Aegis drifted into the heart of it, flanked by 2 scout drones. Lira stood over the sensor station as the results came in. "No bodies," Harrow said quietly. "No emergency signals. No wreckage with markings. Just emptiness. Or what's left when memory is erased," Relek muttered. Imani approached with a new waveform display. "We found a signal. Weak, erratic. Buried under radiation noise, but it's repeating." Lira leaned in. "From Serathis Prime?" Imani nodded. Or what's left of it. The Aegis adjusted course, descending toward a fractured continent, a desert of black stone and shimmering dust. At the edge of a shattered city, the source came into view. A signal beacon, half crushed, still blinking in rhythmic intervals. It's pre-Accord tech, Imani noted. Older than any Earth settlement here should have been. They landed a small team. Lira, Relic, Imani, and 2 security officers stepped into a landscape that felt more like a memory than a place. The beacon pulsed like a dying heartbeat. Then it spoke. Do not follow the spiral. The spiral has no center. The voice was human. Relic's spines flared. That language, it's Terran. But the dialect is wrong, like a cousin split from the family centuries ago. Imani scanned the beacon's memory core. This wasn't meant to be found. It was meant to linger, a warning left in a dying world. Suddenly, the seed key glowed. From the dust around the beacon, more symbols appeared, etched into the ground in concentric rings. Spiral patterns intersected with star charts. This wasn't a colony, Lira realized. It was a listening post. Imani looked up, pale. And it heard something it wasn't supposed to. As the Aegis broke orbit from Serathis, the seed key's pulse shifted. It no longer pointed to a place. It pulsed in time. Imani sat in her lab surrounded by swirling projections of star charts, time-lapse simulations, and fractured linguistic threads. At the center of it all, the seed key floated above a cradle of resonance coils. This isn't just a key, she said to Lira and Relic, who had joined her. It's a carrier of persistent memory. But more than that, it's becoming a translator. Translator of what? Relic asked. Imani rotated one of the temporal simulations. Not a language, a person. The seed key pulsed in response. From the projection, a face slowly formed. Shifting, unstable, half-formed by light and noise, but unmistakably human. Lira leaned forward. Is that someone trapped in the key? A voice whispered through the chamber speakers, fragmented, layered. Archivist class. Recall partial, pattern held. Awaiting reconstitution. Imani stared. It's a consciousness, fragmented, maybe damaged, but aware. The figure blinked slowly. Spiral breach, incomplete. You seeded, but did not seal. Memory. Bleeds. Lira stiffened. What bleeds? The archivist's voice cracked like fractured glass. The silent ones are not gone. They adapted. One thread survived outside time, and it's watching. Suddenly, the ship jolted. Harrow's voice rang out over comms. Captain! Fold space ripple detected. Something's entering. No origin point. It's already here. Lira turned to Imani. Can we stabilize it? I don't think we're meant to. I think it came because we woke this echo. The lights flickered. The seed key dimmed. And from somewhere in the bowels of the ship, a sound began to rise. Not a system alarm. A voice, repeating the warning. Do not follow the spiral. The spiral has no center. Then silence. Lira spoke, her voice low. Bridge, prepare for contact. Whatever followed us back, it remembers too. The Aegis shuddered again. Not from weapons fire. There was no heat signature, no visible impact. The tremor came from within, from pressure that shouldn't exist. Bridge to engineering, Lira called. Report. Chief Halvern's voice crackled in, tense. Ma'am, we're seeing resonance distortions in the core matrix. Not structural, temporal. Something is phasing through the ship. It's not tearing us apart, but it's rewriting nanoseconds. Imani's face paled. Localized time folding. That's bloom-adjacent behavior. On the main screen, space distorted. Not a ship. A silhouette. Dark, organic, layered with curvature that defied angles, like a shape that didn't belong in this universe. It hovered in silence. No drive emissions. No signal. but it pulsed with the same rhythm as the seed key. Targeting? Lira asked. Useless, Harrow said. Weapons can't lock. There's no mass. Relic's fins stiffened. That thing isn't here to attack. It's here to connect. The Archivist's echo returned, clearer this time. You chose a memory, but memory is not containment. It is invitation. The ship's systems began to respond, uncommanded. Viewports darkened. Lights shifted. Internal sensors rerouted. Imani stared in horror. It's using our systems as an interface. A new voice joined. Not the Archivist, not the crew. You seeded the spiral. Now the spiral blooms. Across the bridge, holograms bloomed like invasive vines. Not hostile, beautiful, fractal, mathematical. They showed moments the crew never lived. Memories not their own. Earth with a violet sun. The Aegis flying a different flag. Relic's people fleeing a homeworld that, in this reality, never fractured. We're seeing other versions of ourselves, Imani whispered. Variants, collapsing inward. Lira stood still in the chaos. Then this isn't contact. It's infection by reflection. She turned to the seed key. Its pulse had stopped. Dead still. Only one light remained. In the corner of the screen, a signal. Not from within their reality. A thread leading out. Plot it, Lira said, before we vanish into someone else's memory. The coordinates the Aegis plotted led them into uncharted space. Blank in all-accord star maps, even those from pre-expansion archives. No stars, no gravity wells, just darkness. But the signal was strong, clear. It pulsed not as sound, but as memory. A harmonic frequency that resonated through the crew's implants, triggering long-dormant neural pathways and fragments of dreams they never remembered dreaming. It's not guiding us to a place, Imani said from her console. It's guiding us to a state, Lira frowned. Explain. It's not navigation. It's induction. The closer we get, the more it bends our reality. This signal is trying to tune us into another layer of space. Like aligning a forgotten key with a hidden lock, Relic added, his voice low. As the ship followed the thread, the stars around them flickered. Momentary ghosts of systems that never formed. Constellations rewritten mid-glow. And then, abruptly, space cracked. A rift tore open before them, not in space-time, but in continuity. Through it, a realm shimmered. Not blackness, not color, but a layered cascade of shifting history. Harrow blinked at the display. That's not a system, that's a library. Not of books, Imani said, of realities. The rift widened, beckoning them in. The seed key pulsed again, its light synchronized with the rift's rhythm. It wants us to find something, Lira said. Or someone. Relic checked the forward sensors. There's a signal inside, human biosign, ancient encryption pattern, Accord era, but not ours. Lira straightened. Then we go in. Helm, take us through. The Aegis entered the rift. Light turned inside out. Sound became vision. And for a moment, every crew member on board remembered something they never lived. Then the ship stabilized. And hanging before them, suspended in an impossible lattice of refracted history, was a single life pod. Inside, a woman. Alive. Wearing the uniform of a ship that never existed. The life pod was ancient, patched with alloys the Aegis couldn't identify, and yet somehow stable in the flux of rift space. The woman inside stirred as the ship's grav field linked to the pod's internal systems. She's alive, Imani confirmed, scanning the vitals. Stabilized, low metabolism, artificially induced stasis. She's been asleep a long time. How long? Lira asked. Imani hesitated. Longer than the Accord has existed. The encryption on the pod's data core predates the founding colonies. They brought the pod aboard. In the med bay, The woman awoke slowly. Her eyes opened first, clear, violet-hued, with pupils that briefly flickered like a shutter. She inhaled sharply, then sat up with disorienting calm. "Name?" Lira asked gently. The woman blinked, confused. "I was called Elian." Relic frowned. "Was? I don't know if that name still belongs to me," she said. "Everything has changed." Imani shared the pod logs on a side display. She was part of an Accord expedition, codenamed Vigilant Seraph. It never existed in our timeline. Elian touched the glass. "We were studying the spiral, before it became the bloom, before the spiral turned inward." "You know what it is?" Lira asked. "I remember parts of it. The spiral is not a force, it's a map, a wound, a mirror. We tried to follow it too far." Relic's voice darkened. "And what happened to your crew?" "They were rewritten, folded into versions of themselves that didn't survive." The seed key, resting nearby, began to glow again. Elian's gaze locked on it. "You've activated it. That's why I woke. The spiral sees through it. And now it will begin to hunt again." Lira steadied her voice. "Then help us. We need to understand it. We need to stop it." Elian looked toward the viewport, where the rift swirled silently. "There is no stopping it, only choosing the shape it leaves behind." The rift closed behind them. For the first time in hours, or was it days, the Aegis floated in stillness. No resonance tremors, no distortions, just stars, except they weren't stars. Not exactly. Imani stood at the bridge console, blinking at the external readings. "Captain, these stars aren't emitting light. They're reflecting it." Lira frowned. "From what?" "From us. Every pulse from our systems, even biological rhythms. Somehow they're echoing back as distant light. This entire region is a mirror." Elian stood silently near the viewport, arms folded tightly across her chest. "This was the final stop in our expedition. We called it the Mirror Sky." Relic glanced at her. "Was it always like this?" "No," she said. "It formed after we seeded our signal, after we tried to chart the spiral's origin." The seed key pulsed softly, then sharply. Imani flinched. "I think it just received something, not a location, a vision." Holograms bloomed across the bridge. Unlike before, they were coherent, ordered. A long hallway carved from obsidian stone. Etchings along the walls, symbols matching the seed key. A chamber with 3 thrones, 2 empty, 1 broken. Lira narrowed her eyes. "A place of origin." Elian nodded slowly. "That's where it began. Where the spiral first splintered. We called it the Convergence Spire, but we never reached it." "Why?" Relic asked. "Because the spiral never allows you to arrive. Not unless it wants you to." Lira straightened. "Then we make it want us there. Helm, plot a course for the center of this reflection field. Let's see if a broken throne still remembers who it once served." As the Aegis shifted forward, the stars around them began to move too, like memories stirred from slumber. And somewhere ahead, the Convergence Spire waited. The stars folded aside like curtains as the Aegis approached the coordinates. What emerged was not a planet, nor a station, but a construct, an impossible tower rising in defiance of space. Its foundation was lightless, anchored to nothing, spiraling upward into the mirrored void. Each level shimmered with fractured reflections, moments, timelines, forgotten selves. Imani's voice was hushed. "That's not architecture, that's memory, given shape." Elian nodded. "The Convergence Spire, built where nothing should exist. It marks the spiral's oldest breach." Lira gave the order to dock. A tether formed, light and intention braided into a bridge. As the away team stepped onto it, reality fluctuated with each footfall. The bridge whispered memories into their minds, not their own. Lives they never lived. Failures they never made. Loves they never found. Inside the spire, the walls were etched with glyphs pulsing in time with the seed key. The chamber with 3 thrones loomed ahead. 2 thrones stood untouched. The third, at the center, was broken, its surface blackened, humming with a deep, endless tone. Imani approached. These thrones are interfaces, not for ruling, for remembering. Relic traced one symbol. This one's Vexari, pre-contact, but the other is Terran, very old. Elian's expression tightened. Those are the 2 civilizations that first discovered the spiral, alone, before either of us knew the other existed. Lira turned to the shattered throne. And this one? Elian stepped forward. That's the one that tried to contain it. A sudden pulse from the seed key triggered a reaction. The floor opened into a pool of suspended light. Images flared, dozens of Liras, relics, Imanis, even Elian flickering through timelines. Some failed. Some never found the spire. In one, the Aegis was lost before it ever left Earth. Lira watched in silence. This is what the spiral does. It makes us echoes. And then it chooses. From the broken throne, a voice emerged. Deep. Familiar. Terrifying. You were not meant to come this far. Relic readied his sidearm. Who is that? Elian whispered. That may be the version of us who succeeded. Or thought they did. The voice again. One of you must sit. One must choose which thread becomes truth. Only then will the spiral close. Lira looked at her crew, and then stepped toward the broken throne. The moment Lira touched the throne, everything fell away. She was nowhere, and everywhere. 1,000 versions of herself screamed and whispered across fractured timelines. Some were victorious, others broken. One had never left Earth. Another had become something unrecognizable, part of the bloom itself. But one thread shone brighter than the rest. A world where the spiral had closed. Where memory had anchored the universe instead of fraying it. A future rebuilt not on conquest, but on shared truth. She reached for it, and found herself back in the spire. The others stood frozen. Elian's eyes glowed faintly. Relic seemed held in time. Only the seed key moved, now pulsing with a soft, steady rhythm. The broken throne was whole. Lira exhaled, breath shaking. It chose, or I did. The spire shimmered. Around them, reflections of themselves stepped back into the void, disappearing one by one. Imani blinked as time resumed. What happened? Lira looked at her. We closed a loop. Maybe not the loop, but enough of one to seal the breach. Elian approached the newly restored throne. You weren't meant to sit, but you were meant to choose. The spiral respects those who remember. Relic looked out the viewport. So is it over? The spire began to dissolve, its structure unraveling like smoke and wind. No, Lira said quietly. But we're no longer lost. We carry the thread now, and we decide where it leads. As the Aegis disengaged from the collapsing spire, the seed key emitted one final burst of light. This time not a warning, but a beacon. A call not to retreat, but to rebuild. The Aegis coasted through calm space, trailing echoes. Behind them, the spire was gone. Consumed not by violence but by reconciliation. Before them lay uncharted stars, many dimmed or strangely out of alignment. The galaxy, though whole again, bore scars. Lira stood in the observation deck, seed key clutched loosely in her hand. It was quiet now, warm with a subdued glow. Everything feels lighter, Imani said as she joined her. But I can't help feeling like something's still watching. It is, Lira replied. But not to destroy. To learn. Maybe even to mourn. Relic entered, carrying a decoded packet from deep-range sensors. We picked up fragments, relays from a fleet that never was, and a name. One not seen in our Accord's history. He handed it over. Elian's eyes widened as she read. Vigilant Seraph, my ship. Or another version of it. Somehow it seeded a trail of beacons. Breadcrumbs. Lira looked out at the starlight. Then that's what we follow. This isn't a war anymore. It's a restoration. Imani nodded. And we've already begun rebuilding. Every crew member aboard has retained fragmented memories. Lessons from the threads we left behind. Relic tilted his head. Then maybe we're not the only ones who remember. Maybe others are waking up too. Outside the viewport, a pulse shimmered faintly in the dark. A signal not from the seed key, but from the void itself. One word repeated in broken bursts. Welcome. Lira smiled faintly. Echoes beyond the rift. The signal grew stronger. It wasn't coming from a known system, but a pocket between mapped stars. A rift space corridor hidden in the gravitational shadows of dying suns. The Aegis followed it cautiously, guided more by instinct than instruments. New anomaly ahead, Harrow announced. A field of compressed starlight. It's pulsing like a heartbeat. Relic examined the readings. No mass, no heat, but it's resonating with something deep in the ship. Lira nodded slowly. It's calling the key. Elian stood at the back of the bridge, unusually silent. This place wasn't charted because it isn't meant to be. It only exists between certain choices, fragments the spiral cast aside. The seed key brightened, its glow resolving into a shape. A ring, spinning slowly, surrounded by threads of static. A lock without a door. It's a gate, Imani said. But to where? Possibility, Elian whispered. And maybe something forgotten. The gate shimmered open, not violently, like a page turning. The Aegis passed through. Inside was not space. It was memory spatialized, a corridor of unrealized timelines. Rooms filled with echoes, children who were never born, ships that were never launched, alliances that never fractured, losses that never happened. Lira reached out to touch a vision, a young girl with her eyes, laughing, alive. She pulled her hand back. These aren't for us, Elian said gently. They're the spiral's unchosen dreams. We're not here to change them, only to carry what we must. Imani closed her eyes, listening. There's something else, a central node. Maybe a mind. Something is watching to see what we bring forward. Relic placed a hand on the bulkhead. Then let it see we remember, and we choose not to forget. They reached the end of the corridor. A single pulse of light enveloped the ship, and the gate closed. The Aegis re-emerged into real space, on the edge of a new sector, never before mapped. The stars here were quiet, waiting. Lira looked out. Set a course. Let's give the galaxy something to remember.